The holidays in general can be a stressful time, and anxiety levels may be up as we head into our second holiday season during the pandemic. Some may be feeling angst, wondering if it's finally safe to gather. Others, isolation or depression, as traditional celebrations are canceled again. Join the discussion as mental health experts share tips on how to navigate through the end of the year. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Olena Hugh. The last 2 months of the year are packed with various holidays: Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's. For many, it's a joyous time to gather with family and friends. But for some, especially those who are isolated, the holidays are not always festive. Even during so-called normal times, these upcoming weeks can be filled with frenzy. Add COVID to the mix, and celebrations during the pandemic can pile on extra stress for those who are already struggling. We'll get tips from our panel tonight on how to manage all the different emotions that come with the holiday season. We also look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email or call in with your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. Now on to our guests. U'ilani Kiaha is a behavioral health specialist who works with youth on Moloka'i. She also works as a crisis mobile outreach team member and is part of the Suicide Prevention Maui County Task Force. Dr. Chad Koyanagi is the psychiatric medical director at Adventist Health Castle. He's also a street medicine psychiatrist at the Institute for Human Services and has been working with the chronically homeless who are mentally ill for more than 2 decades. Kathleen Merriam is a licensed clinical social worker and a certified substance abuse counselor. She works for the Department of Health and is currently the mental health supervisor of the Windward Community Mental Health Center in Kaneohe. And Jenna Altamare is a paramedic with the City and County of Honolulu Emergency Medical Services. After working in the field for 20 years, she now serves as the safety specialist for EMS and is the program coordinator for the EMS peer support team. So thank you all for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your time. And yes, the holidays are upon us. So my first question, I would like to address it to Kathleen to talk a little bit about what you've seen as far as mental health and health-wise in our state since COVID.
Well, thank you. And thank you for paying attention to mental health. We're very, very fortunate that PBS is focusing on this evening. So mental health affects all of us, and especially when we're looking at the time frame, we have been enduring these difficult times for now. We're coming up on, almost a couple of years. And so I think the concern is the we call it often compassion fatigue or burnout, or there's lots of names, but clinically, a lot of people are suffering from anxiety and depression. And so frequently we're experiencing these various symptoms and we don't know what that's from, but it can be that we've been enduring this for such a long period of time. So I think it's important that people pay attention to those feelings and those different things that are going on. If their behavior changes, it's important to seek help. It's important to pay attention to our mental health. Many people are not comfortable talking about mental health, but it is a part of our whole being. And so we're really happy to talk about that this evening. So just talking about it and sharing your feelings and then seeking help if necessary is very, very important.
I agree. Having the discussion is definitely going to make a difference. And so Dr. Koyanagi, you actually specialize with those that are homeless and in the community. And what have you been seeing lately as well?
Well, I think the pandemic has been especially hard on all people, and especially a lot of our homeless individuals who are still on the streets. Unfortunately, because of the public health measures of staying at home, and a lot of the healthcare services have pulled back during the pandemic. So a lot of the folks who are getting more face-to-face services from outreach workers, case managers, unfortunately, those individuals have had to kind of be on their own and the health system has kind of switched to a kind of telehealth remote model, and so therefore it's been very hard to find some of our people who are homeless, and certainly getting them to connect with people who are trying to help them via a digital box is very difficult at times. So we just have to hope for continued services for these individuals, and hopefully will be more face-to-face visits in the future.
I would imagine that for that demographic, they might not have the capability of telehealth, with a computer or a cell phone.
Exactly. So the pandemic has shown us that people who have resources, who have computers, who have cell phones, who have tablets, have been able to stay connected with services that they needed. However, the people in poverty, people who are homeless, don't have those tools. So the divide between the haves and the have-nots has gotten much bigger and more concerning.
Thank you. And U'ilani, over on the island of Molokai, what are you seeing there within your community?
I want to say I've seen a lot of people come together during this time. And then there's also things that haven't, but I feel like the majority is trying to come together and help each other. So I feel like this has probably been, since the pandemic has hit, the most like food drives that we've had, the most reach outs as much as possible. And like in creative ways, like drive-throughs are like huge, like drive-through birthday parties, drive-through weddings, drive-through baby showers. And I think at this time, people are getting more creative and also seeing how much people they can touch, but also sometimes what they're missing out on, like first baby luau is super huge in most local cultures. And here, especially on Molokai, like if you've ever been to a party of any sort here, the food is amazing because they, make it themselves. They gather and do all those things themselves. And I just feel like a little bit of that has like, you don't get the full experience. You only get partial because it's a quick drive-by. But I can say that we've saved a lot more money with drive-throughs rather than a huge party. But the social interaction that you usually get at a big gathering, I think that has, definitely affected people in different ways. But I've also seen us become more resourceful.
Mm-hmm. A nice bright spot to see people, pivot and come up with innovative ways to do so. Were you noticing also that perhaps the community was impacted? Were they staying home and isolating, or were they kind of just doing things as they normally would?
I think it depends on the family, and I'm not can't speak for everyone. I can only speak for the experiences that I experienced. But before, when the pandemic had first hit, we were ordered to stay home as workers, and so we couldn't go and like reach out to people for like the crisis mobile outreach. You couldn't actually go to them right away. There was like different protocols being put in place, and then as well as for the school setting, like working from home, that was really hard for me. It was a lot more distracting because everybody was like working from home, and then I know that was like a hardship for us in a sense because electricity went up. We're also everyone's on the same Wi-Fi in the same area, and on Molokai, like Wi-Fi can be spotty here and there. And so I think it affected people in many different ways. But for our family, I would say that we stayed with each other a lot more. So that gave us more time together, which we usually in a regular work week would have less time together. So I don't know if that was always great. So if our family wasn't, doing specific things to keep ourselves healthy, it might not have been a healthy environment. If, some other families might have been experiencing that during the pandemic, being on lockdown or losing their jobs and having to be home, helping their child in school. I think each family might have experienced things differently, but with what Chad said earlier about certain populations not having access, and I think that was like majorly apparent when the pandemic hit. Like, oh yeah, everybody can come in online, but there was so many families without Wi-Fi, without a device, that that was one other step that the schools had to do. And the schools also did like meals, and that was really helpful, I believe, for families who needed that food, like they didn't realize that breakfast and lunch at school was kind of huge. And I heard from the kids that the breakfast and lunch during the drive-through times from the school was a lot more better than what they remember like in person. So that was kind of cool feedback from the kids.
I know families did certainly appreciate that. And also want to remind our viewers that we're open to your questions. You can log on to our Facebook, you can email them, you can also call them in if you have any questions for our panel. But want to move over to Jenna, who has been with the City and County of Honolulu EMS for 24 years now. And what kind of changes did you see in the types of calls that you're responding to over the past couple of years now?
With the pandemic, things kind of got really crazy. Like our call volume skyrocketed for a while, and people were just, I got COVID, I gotta go to the hospital. And even though their symptoms were really minor, their docs were just like, oh no, go to the hospital, get checked out. Or they just took it upon themselves saying they needed to go. And so for a while, we had to kind of push out the message of only if it's an emergency, call 911, because we were just getting so flooded with calls. And then it kind of tapered off for a while and it wasn't too bad. And then recently things just started picking up again and we're just getting slammed over and over. And especially with the Delta, the numbers just went up and people were calling all the time. And so it was been difficult for our guys. They've been having to work really hard.
What would you say the top two calls are regarding?
Shortness of breath, and like generalized weakness, cold symptoms, COVID symptoms.
Yeah, so just those that fear that they might be COVID positive and they don't know what to do, so they call 911.
Yeah.
And what would you say, the protocol should be when something like that happens?
If you're just having minor symptoms that if, say, it was before the pandemic and it was flu season and you would just stay home and you having COVID symptoms, I would say stay home. But if you're having a lot of shortness of breath and, you're getting altered, stuff like that, then that's the kind of stuff we want you to call for. You need to call us because we want to get you help sooner than later. But if it's something that you normally would have stayed home before, then that's the time you can just go see your own personal doc. You can telemedicine with them.
Okay, thank you. And we're starting to get your viewer questions, and we appreciate that. The first one is from Tim in Kaimuki. He says, the legislature approved converting Leahi Hospital into a mental health assessment facility, but the Department of Health has failed to open it yet. So he's asking if the panel can comment on this. And Kathleen, do you want to perhaps start?
I'm not clear on the specifics of Leahi Hospital. I know that near there, we do have a stabilization bed area, which is called Palikana Leahi. And that is, so it's actually a wing of Leahi Hospital. And that's proven to be very effective where basically clients that are kind of high utilizers, I would say that they're going in and out of the hospital and they are going in and out of jail and they really need intensive case management. They get the case management and the idea is to have them reduce their symptoms and their hospitalizations and incarceration with that kind of case management. And they are in a 24-hour supervised residence and it's a wing of that Leahi Hospital. That is a very good model and it's been replicated on the Big Island and it's working well. Whether that's going to be expanded to other areas, I don't know, but we do have that working well there. I'm not sure that directly answers the viewer's question, but that's something I know about Leahi Hospital.
Thank you. Talking a little bit more about the holidays and stress and anxiety and depression, what kind of tips do you have for people to, acknowledge the problems that they're having and what kind of steps should they take to try to mitigate that?
Well, one of my favorite organizations is American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. and we have a Hawaii chapter. And they, along with NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, they both promote some of the similar things that mind, body, soul, and scenery. And what I like about that is it talks about self-care, that we have to take care of ourselves, especially during the holidays, and that we want to focus on our mind. What can we do to kind of relax and regroup? And when we have these difficult days, how do we pace ourselves during the days? And what are we doing to take care of our bodies, because they're connected? Sometimes we don't pay attention to our physical health because we're so worried about our mind and what is our mind doing? Our soul, what does feed our soul? And then scenery. Scenery has to do with, enjoying the beautiful areas that we live in and kind of connecting to the land. And there's a lot of initiatives now that are available to help us pay attention to self-care. And we really are concerned right now, I think, about our colleagues. We're thinking about the people that take care of us, that have now been taking care of us for this long period of time. And maybe we need to look at that and how do we take care of them? Because there are a lot of folks, whether it's doctors, nurses, social workers, substance use counselors, the people on the streets taking care of the folks on the streets, whoever they are, people that are the caretakers, the healthcare workers, we need to stop and pay attention to that group as well.
What things can we do if you feel like you're in a crisis and you need someone to talk to?
There's lots of things to do. And we have a specific kind of coordinated entry point here in Hawaii called Hawaii Cares, which is a phone number that you can call. I believe we're going to show that on the screen, but it's for Oahu, it's 832-3100. And then there's a toll-free number for the neighbor islands, which is 753-6879. And that is for anybody that is struggling with something, whether they want to find out a resource of where they could go to, whether they are uninsured and they don't know how to get into the mental health system. So it could be a first caller, or it could be to reach somebody that maybe they need a crisis mobile outreach worker like Ulani is on her island, where somebody needs to come to the home and have some kind of intervention. So that's one way to access some help.
And my understanding is those phone lines are monitored 24/7?
24/7, it's a crisis line, but it's also access to the system and access to resources, access to a program called Kumakani, which has just been developed for COVID, so that people can have extra support through groups, through talking with each other, through personal counseling. So there's a lot of resources available, and this would be the time to take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Because it's there. Yeah.
And, speaking from personal experience, I did have a friend that was going through something, and because I was the friend that she went to for help, I didn't know exactly what to say. I'm not a therapist. And I called the number to try to find out, what kind of things should I be saying? What can I do? And they're very helpful, very helpful.
Oh, good. That's good to hear. Yes, please call.
So Dr. Koyanagi, I was wondering, how do you differentiate between having anxiety from having just like a full mental breakdown?
So during the pandemic, it's just been a traumatic experience for every one of us. Every single person on this earth has dealt with losses, and loss of loved ones, loss of job, loss of housing, loss of communities is one of the big things. So everybody's experiences anxiety to some degree. It's part of normal range of human emotion. At which point we decided someone has a breakdown is when kind of their normal coping strategies have kind of been unable to deal with the amount of anxiety that they were dealing with, and as a result, the person cannot, get out of bed, can't interact meaningfully with others, can't do their job, and sometimes people can get so despondent that they become hopeless or suicidal or become unsafe to others. So it's a spectrum of anxiety, but there comes a point where a professional can tell that someone's clearly over the line as far as needing the more intensive help and possibly acute help.
What kind of advice do you have to someone who's alone and maybe doesn't have someone else there to help them?
That's such a tough question. So a lot of the homeless folks I deal with, they have no sense of community. They have no way of communicating with others. They have no trusted person to talk to. They have no family. The only way to get help would be to either seek out a place where help is readily given, like a church or a homeless shelter or the CARES line. If that person needs more help than that, then they should probably go to an emergency room or urgent care center.
And Uilani, I feel like you might have something to piggyback on that.
So I was just thinking that a lot of resources on the outer islands are like, people might be on Oahu and thinking we don't have resources. And then you go to Maui County or any other outside counties and you're like, we really don't have the resources. Then you go to a smaller island and you really don't have the resources. And so I think what I found is I've been helping families to kind of recognize the sources of strength around themselves that they didn't think that they had. So I think it's really good for us to look first, if we can, if we're having thoughts of
I think we might be having some audio issues. Try continue, Uilani.
Sorry, can
We'll come back to you. My apologies. I think for some reason the audio is cutting out. But moving on to...
If I could piggyback on what she was saying, since she's...
Sure.
So I've done work in various neighbor islands, including Molokai and Maui and Hawaii Island. And I think she was trying to touch on the point that some of the more rural, smaller communities, even though they have less resources in terms of technical equipment and companies and programs, what I've noticed clearly and consistently is that the smaller communities have a kind of greater sense of community and greater way of kind of banding together to find what people need and to kind of team up and help each other out.
Beautiful. And I see Kathleen nodding there as well.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I'll piggyback off of what Chad said.
Okay.
So I think my main point was, look at your...
Oh, I think we're having that Molokai audio issue. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. We can't hear her at the moment, but we're going to work on it. And Kathleen, do you have something to say also, perhaps on how the community is banding, or if you have family members?
Well, I love what's been said so far. I do think that because it's been such a tough time, people have gotten very creative about how we support each other. And in some ways, families have gotten closer, and we've had to find just very special connections, kind of out of desperation, but there has been a beautiful side to that. And that community organizations and partnerships have grown and kind of blossomed out of the necessity. And so there is this, on one side, there's been some tragedy and, a lot of grieving and, real hardships. And on the other side, there is some beauty and hope and pulling together and strengthening. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything that you know of as far as resources that can also help people as we head into the holidays, aside from the 24/7 hotlines?
Well, I would definitely seek out some of these. Somebody turned me on to an app about keeping calm, and somebody else was telling me about a fitness, another fitness outlet. And I also jumped on Kumakani to check out the groups, and I thought that looked interesting. I think anything to do with self-care and self-improvement I think this is a good time to do that because often we're caring about other people, we're holding our families together, we're trying to, pay the bills and keep jobs together. And so if we just take out a little bit of time every day to relax, recharge, refresh, I think that's a really good, helpful thing for our mental health and our physical health.
Absolutely. And there's so many apps out there now, yoga and meditation and whatnot. And so I also wanted to send it over to Jenna to talk from a first responder perspective. What are some ways that you guys are trying to cope with the stress and, the workload at this point?
I think a lot of our guys, they have their families that they bond with and they share their stress with them. Or we also have our peer support that has done wonderful jobs reaching out to our guys, and they take a very proactive approach to try to call out and reach out to them. And, being able to share peer-to-peer always helps because they understand what you go through and all the hardship that you have done. And just finding your stress outlet, whether it's exercising or going to church or hanging out with just friends. If you can have that time to release your stress, then it doesn't build up over time, right? So like for me, I go surfing every single weekend and I make that the priority because if I don't get my surf in, then my stress level doesn't come back down. And then I'm really maxed out the next week and not as happy a person. But, you just got to take that time to make that the priority. And our guys are pretty good about, making sure that they can decompress.
Excellent. Good point. We got a pandemic puppy and she's been the brightest light. And so, not saying everyone should go out and get a puppy, but, definitely helps. And so Uilani is back, and let's see. So we were just talking a little bit about, what some tips are to deal with stress.
So how's my connection now?
I think good.
Okay. I live on Molokai. This is how it is sometimes. But so some tips. I think one of the things I like doing that I found helpful, someone shared it with me. There's this website called Actions for Happiness. And they have these wonderful calendars that on each day they have something little to do or to say. It could be a positive self-talk affirmation. It could be something to do with self-care. It could be a service. It could be a kindness. And it's like something little you could do each day. And I share that pretty much with like everyone I work with because I feel like out of like the schools I work with and then social workers I work with, a lot of times we don't always remember to care for ourselves. And so Jenna said, going surfing, that's her thing. And so you got to find your things, even if it's your thing is trying new things, or trying to cook or bake or perfect something or try something for the first time and mess up, I think those times helps us to navigate whatever is going on in our lives. And I know that some families I work with, they're in survival mode. So they can't even think to do that, And so I think some tips besides if you're not able to get to the self-care part is taking some time for you, whatever that looks like. If that's like closing the bathroom door and showering for a lot longer than you usually would, or if it's like listening to music, or a lot of my friends that are moms are like watching certain shows on Netflix and Hulu. Not that I'm trying to put a plug in for that, but I think that finding what works for you that helps your brain and your body get back to calm, like she said, or like, you know, so that you can function for whomever you have responsibility over or serve, or just for you maybe.
Definitely. Yes, absolutely. And Dr. Koyanagi, can you tell me the benefits of getting outside?
So some of the ways that the pandemic has affected us, it's taken us out of our usual rituals and routines that keep us kind of grounded and psychologically healthy, including going for a walk or going to church on Sundays or going to the gym. So as we get further out of this pandemic, hopefully we can have people being allowed to do the things that are their rituals and their routines, and hopefully that at some point will involve things like going back to work and socializing with friends after work and going out to eat or going to the ball games and cheering for the same team. And so I think once we hopefully over the next 3 or 6 months we'll get more into our pre-pandemic routines, which will hopefully start normalizing our society.
And we do have a viewer question from Mike from Makiki. He said, would the panel recommend travel outside of the islands to alleviate stress and depression? And so maybe doctor, for you.
Sure. As long as I think people need to start reconnecting with their families. A lot of people in Hawaii have ohana on the mainland and have not been able to see them for a couple of years. People have families have lost loved ones, and being able to enjoy the holidays and reconnecting with loved ones and sharing in the collective losses and struggles that they've had for the past 2 years, I think it's a good thing.
Thank you. And Jenna, when you're responding to calls, how often are you seeing our elderly or our kupuna with these kinds of issues?
You know, a lot of them, it's hard for them because if they're homebound and they don't get a chance to get out and connect with their families, you know, it is really easy for them to get lonely and sad. And there's times where people call us because they just want somebody to talk to, you know. But, you know, usually during Christmas, during the holidays, you know, without the pandemic, we would have a lot of times where you see a lot more depression or a lot more violence and stuff like that than normal. And with the pandemic, it kind of just amplifies it too.
Mm-hmm. What are some things that neighbors or family members can look out for?
I would say, hey, just look out for your neighbors and be that person to be like, hey, you guys, you know, if you're homebound, hey, do you need help? Hey, can I get you groceries? You know, I'm going to the store now. Hey, is there anything I can do for you? And I think that just that little connection, you know what I mean? And you can still do it in a safe way and, you know, keep your distance, but still be able to help somebody. And I think that makes a difference for people, and just knowing that somebody else cares.
Definitely. And
I wanted to ask, can I ask Jenna about along this topic? I wanted to ask Jenna about the new program that's incorporating the bus with social workers and EMTs in red shirts and taking those calls.
Yeah, so we just recently started the program. It's actually a division under the HESD, which is Honolulu Emergency Service Department. So it's another division that we're part of, and they have been going out to try to help a lot more of the homeless people and trying to take them to places, because for EMS, we always take them to the hospital, and that's not necessarily the place that they need to be, right? So I think this program is taking them to clinics or taking them to places where it's not necessarily burdening the hospital, but still getting them the services they need. And so they're combining together with like the social workers or with nurses and kind of helping the homeless people get services that they need.
Wonderful.
Checking up on them. And sometimes it could be, we get called all the time like, oh, I need medications. So it might be a way to help them get their medications instead of going to the hospital for that.
Great program. Thank you, Doctor, for bringing that up. Let's talk a little bit about children and parents, and what are some ways that we can cope, not only during the holiday season, but also with COVID and everything that's happening. And so, Uilani, what kind of tips do you have for parents in how to, balance that?
Okay, so disclaimer, I am not a parent, but I am an auntie. I work with youth and I work with children. I have a lot of experience in my own family life where my mom raised a big family. She comes from a big family, and my dad also comes from a big multi-family. So I think in most local homes, there is either you have a lot in your ohana, or you have just a little. And so I would say some of the tips is, I think a lot of them are actually doing it. At least here, they're spending more time together because they were given that opportunity when the pandemic hit. And then now that we're gaining some kind of, whatever this kind of new normal is called, we're getting something different. And now that the students have to come to school physically, it's been a little bit difficult for, I think, that getting back into the groove, because like Jenna shared, when the Delta variant came in, a lot of families pulled their children out of school, didn't let them go to school, or actually we call it 4140. They no longer are in the schools. They either go homeschool, or they try to figure something else out and try to do like a distance learning. But I would encourage, like for me, I think each parent, it's to their own. I would encourage them to, if it works for their ohana, to keep their child in school, because it's one other place to safely learn and socialize. And we have some really amazing staff there. And I also want to congratulate families that have been just doing well during the pandemic. And I think for families who are struggling during the pandemic, I feel like there's been way more resources that have come through because of the pandemic. Even when resources were taken away, if that makes sense. I think they were trying to fill in those gaps. And so look to those other resources if you need it financially, or for your mental health, or even for your physical health. Whatever it may be. I think reaching out, knowing your resources is probably the main thing. But I think spending time and finding fun things you like doing at home, or at the beach, or wherever you go to have fun, I think that's been really enriching, because when I finally got to be with my family after not being able to see them, because my family lives on Oahu and Maui Island, and being able to see them and not having that opportunity physically in a long time was so nice, because so many babies were born, and so many little things happened during the pandemic that really changed a lot of family situations. And so kind of want to keep that connection, so that if you do lose loved ones, or people are struggling, like Jenna said, kind of you're already in the know, you're connected with each other, and knowing your resources when you need help.
Thank you. And Kathleen, obviously the holidays are upon us, and how do you encourage people to have hope that things will get better?
Well, I hope that is a priority, because, you were mentioning children and youth, and they are our future. And I think that's a really vulnerable group of people. We know that youth are probably the highest risk for thoughts of suicide, and actually dying by suicide. If we are around youth and little ones, I think we have to take special care. I'm very excited about the children's mental health as a part of, which is under Department of Health, just got a grant to focus on trauma-informed care, which means basically to make sure that services are aware of the traumatic experiences that many children face. And so it's really looking at systems and organizations and providers and services to make sure that they are aware of trauma and can deliver in an informed way about that. And so I think that what we can do is to be aware that we know children and younger people, and I suppose all of us are pretty resilient. We hear a lot about the resiliency, but to also be aware of the fact that what many of us have been going through are traumatic experiences. And if it's not directly, it might be what we call vicarious trauma. You know, we're constantly seeing other people's trauma, and that wears on us. That wears on us physically and psychologically. And so in order to have hope, I think hope has to do with when we believe that things will get better, that we've survived this far, we can survive it more, and that it's actually, we're seeing some improvements, we're seeing people get better, we're seeing life as we know it come back. And so I think when we have hope in our heart, that strengthens us all. So yeah, I think like this, you know, this forum tonight is a way that we can bring hope and share hope.
Absolutely.
And so I hope we keep doing that. Yeah.
Thank you. And Dr. Koyanagi, can you tell me, you know, what the steps are to get treatment, and when do you think it's essential for people to be medicated?
In terms of mental health, there's such a wide variety of afflictions that people suffer from. Some of them can be alleviated with psychotherapy. Some of them may require medications. Some conditions like depression might benefit from both at the same time. So the good starting point would be having a good assessment by a trained professional. Doesn't have to be a psychiatrist, and based on what the diagnosis is and the severity of symptoms as described by the patient, the person may just require talk therapy or non-medicine related treatments, or if it's more severe, then they should get referred to a prescriber, a psychiatrist, or an APRN RX.
What do you tend to sway toward in terms of treatment? Are you more holistic?
So my practice is, because of the work that I do, most of the patients I have, I treat have schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. So of course we try to help these people with a holistic approach with housing and physical health and decreasing their stress. A lot of these folks do require medications for the rest of their lives. So my personal expertise is more towards the biologically based treatments.
Mm.
I have a question for Dr. Koyanagi.
Sure.
So I work with some who have bipolar and schizophrenia, and I'm just wondering, I know of some things for the caregivers, like people who are helping those who are diagnosed with mental health diagnoses. Like, are there some programs or some things that caregivers can have? Because I know, like, one of the things, like, us CMOs are turn into what's called CSM, and we can go out and help for that crisis moment. But I think long term, I'm like, how can we support them and help them?
So for long-term education and family support, one of the most excellent organizations is NAMI, and they have they promote awareness of mental illness, especially severe mental illness, and so they have resources on some of the islands. I'm not sure if is there anything on Molokai, but on Oahu they have this wonderful series of educational groups called Family to Family. And so every few times a year, they have a series of about 10 or 12 Saturdays where they come together with different family members and they educate them about the illness and how to best support their loved ones and things like that. I also encourage family members of patients to always, as much as possible, try to insert themselves into their patients, their loved ones' treatment. I think a lot of times mental health professionals treat the person just as an individual and don't incorporate family when the person lives with their family and the family cares about them and is trying to be a part of their lives. So I think that is a very thing that's ignored, and we need to try harder as professionals to involve the families as much as we can.
And I think too, some families feel like their hands are tied, you know, like if they're a family member who is experiencing psychosis or a mental health breakdown, and they are not equipped to support them, and they try to get help by calling 911 or calling the Hawaii Cares line, and they feel like nothing's happening because, you know, by the time a response comes, sometimes the psychosis episode or mania might have like subsided, but then comes right back after help has tried to come, you know. And so, man, I just really feel for a lot of families who are going through that. So if you are one of those people, please know that, you know, you can still reach out. And I would say don't stop reaching out. Like, don't give up, because I think that can be really hard on some caregivers and some ohanas who are stuck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
I'm so glad you mentioned NAMI, because it's such a good program, and they do help with education because the family member needs some support. It's so, you know, all your energy kind of goes to helping your loved one, but they also need that support. And we do have a strong NAMI here in Hawaii, and they do have affiliates on neighbor islands. So thank you so much for mentioning that.
And for viewers,
there's also, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, for viewers that are like, what are they saying? It's NAMI, NAMI, which is an acronym for
National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Okay.
And then there's local chapters, and same with Mental Health America. And there's a local chapter here too of that, MHA, Mental Health America. And they have workshops and different trainings you can go to. That's for family and anybody and professionals, but NAMI is especially for families. Yeah, that's great.
Good nonprofit. All right, we've got some questions rolling in, and one is from Mark in Kailua. He says, what should friends, family, and coworkers do when they see someone who seems withdrawn, not themselves? How important is it to act? So maybe Kathleen or Doctor?
Well, you jump on it too, Dr. Chad, but I think it's really helpful and beneficial to act. I know there's some people that believe that, well, if somebody's so psychotic or so under the influence, they don't know what's going on. I really believe there's a thread of sanity that knows what's going on. And I think it does make a difference to go ahead and say hello or be kind, you know, to have an act of kindness and to offer help. And you may not get the response that you're hoping for, but I think it makes a difference. And I would encourage people to always go ahead and make a gesture or a kind act towards a person.
Doctor, any thoughts?
I would just echo those sentiments, and you should go out and engage someone like that who's withdrawn and we have very minimal social supports, and do your best to see what they need, how you can help, or just be kind.
And Jenna, you know, obviously you're a first responder and you respond to the scene of maybe someone that did call for help. What have you noticed, and what kind of tips do you have for family members as well?
Like, a lot of times people just want somebody to listen, and that's a lot of times what they call us for, is they just want to see that somebody cares, you know, and it's a cry for help. And so, you know, just taking the time to spend the extra time to see what their main problem is, not just treating what they said their symptoms are, but just really listening and talking to them to see what the root of their problem is really helpful. And for families, you know, or even just coworkers or stuff like that, just if you notice somebody that's not themselves, even that small gesture, like they were talking about, of, hey, are you okay? You know, you're not your normal self. What's going on? And having that somebody notice, I think makes a big difference for people. Like, hey, yeah, somebody actually does care. Not as alone as I thought I was.
Definitely. And it's resonating with me that you go surfing every weekend, right? And that's like your therapy. And what other kind of things do you see fellow EMS workers doing as part of their therapy as well?
We have a group of people that go to the Lo'i and they work the farm, and that's their time to spend together, and they kind of decompress together and working in the land, and just doing that kind of stuff is doing really great stuff for them. And they find that they do that with our MICT students. They do it with just groups of people that work all together, and it's a really good bonding time for them.
Wonderful. We have another question from Eric in Kalihi. He says, please talk about how to deal with the added stress of the holidays. That's already a stressful time. Uilani, maybe?
Well, actually, before I address that question, on the previous question, Mental Health America in Hawaii also does like trainings for first aid for mental health. And so it's like a class. And if you want to learn how to help people who may be experiencing mental health, that's a great class to go to, whether you're in the mental or behavioral health professions. It's still good for any person who feels comfortable doing that. And you can look it up on the website. As for like things to do in the holidays, for me and my family, I feel like, especially since the pandemic, we've been more like trying to save and do things, at least financially. So I'm not sure if this was more like a financial question or like what to do during these stressful times of the holidays. I actually feel like I've been happier, but that's my personal. So if you're not experiencing happiness during the holidays, like for instance, it's Halloween just passed and it was so exciting over here, even though we're Molokai. It was so awesome. Some people did some really amazing things. But, although Thanksgiving is coming, like I see people already getting ready for Christmas. And so I think doing little things, it doesn't have to be like go and buy a whole bunch of decorations or now you have to buy a whole bunch of gifts, unless that's what your family already does and you can afford to do that. I think looking for the little things that make each other happy, like thoughtful. I mean, I like thoughtful gifts, so I definitely like gifts, but it does not have to be where it was worth all of this money. Although those are great too. I think when you get like a thoughtful gift, when they know who you are or it's something like pertaining to you, that gift feels good. So I think if you're talking about that, make those little connections or things that are thoughtful. It could be simple and small. It could be acts. It does not have to be something tangible. I think there's so many little things we could do.
And Jenna has a comment.
I know COVID has been mostly a bad thing, but there has been few things that have been really positive that came out of it. And I think for like the holidays, how it's normally super busy. Last year, everybody pretty much had to stay home, and that was kind of a reset button for us. So this year, because we're still in that transition of, how many people can we actually have in a gathering or stuff like that, you can kind of take that step and decide how busy do you really want to be, because last year we didn't do that much. So this year, hey, maybe we can do a little bit more, spend time with the family, but we don't have to go into the very crazy busy mode like we were pre-pandemic.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I'm thinking that this caller is already feeling stressed. And so maybe to kind of get a handle of it now, it would be important to kind of plan ahead and say, what meaning do I want to have, on Thanksgiving or whether it's Hanukkah or Christmas, what's meaningful to me? And maybe it's not getting caught up in these ideas of what the holiday should be, so that it's not the hallmark that maybe we think people have, but maybe it's volunteering at a small little place that's safe and comfortable, or maybe it's having, a day of gratitude and not being around too many people, or maybe it is being around, maybe you decide exactly who do you want to be with, but probably doing some planning and, intentional thinking about how do I keep myself calm and not get stressed. I don't want the stress to take it over for me. I don't want to buy into all this stuff around that can be stressful. But I think it's a really good question of how do I not get stressed, especially because this person's saying I'm already feeling it.
Thank you so much, everybody. What a great panel. And I think the message, the great takeaway is to give back and take time for yourself. So mahalo for joining us tonight. And we want to thank our guests from Molokaʻi Behavioral Health Specialist, Uilani Kiaha, Dr. Chad Koyanagi, Psychiatric Medical Director at Adventist Health Castle, Licensed Clinical Social Worker and Certified Substance Abuse Counselor, Kathleen Miriam, and Honolulu EMS Safety Specialist, Jenna Altamare. Next Thursday is Veterans Day. Our show that night will focus on issues surrounding our veterans and what they're facing. Please join us then. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I'm Olena Hugh from Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha and a hui ho.